our panelist session for balancing demands of teaching and research. I am the moderator. I'm Hyoyeun from the English department. Here are our panelists. This is all in alphabetical order, not in my personal preferences. Dr. Esther from Other Languages, Dr. Arruda from Chemistry, Dr. Gabriele-Black from Psychology, Dr. Leeman from History. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, so this is a session to discuss both research, teaching balance, but also work-life balance and productivity, because we all want to stay healthy and happy. So my questions are in all those topics. So my first question is, what is your definition of being productive, and how do you maintain that during the semester? Do you have different approaches and tips for summer and winter breaks? What are your research goals during the semester and during the breaks?
What are there? Anybody?
Go, Belgrade. I'd say it's two completely different approaches based on whether we're in the academic year or we're during one of the major breaks, particularly summer break. So for me, what I try to do during the semester is set aside one specific day a week or part of a day, like a morning or an afternoon, and really just focus on that being like my scholarship day and try to plan ways to advance my scholarship that fit that amount of time that I have. I think it's really important to be reasonable about what you can accomplish during the academic year. This is one of the things I had trouble adjusting to when I got to Solid, was I had all these goals, and then I'm at like year 2 or 3, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not getting anything done. And I think if you put too much pressure on yourself, saying, well, I have to do this, I think it's very easy to get frustrated and just kind of shut down on the scholarship. So I think it's always really important to be very reasonable about what you can get done. So during the academic year, I mean, I'll be honest, I have a hard time doing it. I was better at it before I became Pell Honors Director than I am now, because that's one of those positions where one email at 9 o'clock in the morning can destroy your day. But I would say in the summer, what I try to do is keep like a regular work schedule, not like during the academic year, but say something like 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon or something, work on scholarly projects, because I know that's where I'm going to have the big blocks of time, and that's where I'm going to make the most progress going forward. I would say one last thing I do, which this is unique to me. I'm not necessarily saying it for everybody, because sometimes you could get overwhelmed if you don't do it right, but I like to have more than one project going at once, and more than one project that's in a different stage of development. I have a tendency after a while, I might kind of grow tired of a topic. And so it's helpful me to put it aside for a while until I get excited about it again and go to something else for a while. So I usually have a book, an article, and maybe a book review going at once. And then I rotate among them.
Starting at Solid, coming from a research lab where I was almost exclusively doing research, and then coming here and teaching with a steep learning curve. And one of the things I've learned is that teaching will fill however much time you give it. And so for me, that's been trying to set boundaries around how much time I allow for teaching. Like, I don't need to spend an exorbitant amount of time on a PowerPoint for a class, because the students are going to see it once and that's it. So I have created a pretty rigid schedule for myself during the semester. At least I get here really early in the morning. Yost is emailing me at 7 o'clock, and so from 7 to 9 it's pretty quiet in my inbox, and that's helped a lot of productivity. In addition to all the things that Bill said, staying in contact and collaborating with people outside of this space has been really helpful too. Like, I still work with people from graduate school. There are different kinds of institutions with different sorts of problems, but it helps me not give in to the struggles that I have here and to aspire to something a little bit higher sometimes.
I would say an extra set of hands or two can often be really important. If you're 3 weeks into the semester, you probably know your students pretty well. you might be able to engage them to help you out with the project. We do this a lot, you know, I'm a chemist, my research is in a lab. But there are always students who are willing and interested in being with you working on a project. So if you have a project that could use, you know, you could use a student's help, absolutely put them to work on it. You know, it's hands-on experience that they find really rewarding, and you know, you get to build a deeper relationship with your student. And a lot of times it can be transformational for them. There's a lot of teaching that goes along with that. You know, we have students here in the summertime, and you know, when you have a student that you're working with who's a freshman, who's out of their freshman year, you're teaching them that whole summer. It's a lot of work. But for them, it's transformational. For you, you can eventually start to get productivity out of them, so that you don't have to do those little things. You can sort of focus on some of the bigger picture items, and it works really well.
My case, I don't know, I also need to have a couple of projects cooking. I have to say that I protect my personal time a lot, which I didn't do when I started, but I was not being productive at all. Like I remember my first couple of years, and I know there is kind of question around that, so I'll expand later if necessary, but I was like in front of the computer for many hours, but nothing was happening really. And now, and especially, and it's interesting because after having a child, I became more productive. And I think it's because of the structure, right? Because of giving structure. So for me, the key thing is to give structure. I have a schedule also that is pretty rigid. And for me, so during the semester, I have to do something research related every single day. I mean, Monday to Friday, even if it's half an hour or 1 hour. But I have objectives. So this is what I do. It's kind of like nerdy, but so I have. I don't know if you know the professor's name, but if anybody knows, I got her book when I went out of grad school, and she suggested having a 5-year plan, which I did. So I had a 5-year plan, which extended into 6 for tenure, and then I divided my plan into fall and spring and summer. And I have my calendar, and I do it with my hands, like, you know, no documents. And what I do is, like I said, and then so semester, month, week, day. And I do it because I like giving myself checks, and it motivates me, and it helps me be productive, a word that I don't really love anyway. So I agree that the objectives have to be realistic, and you have to be flexible. But you have, but in my case, I want to make sure that I do something research related every single day, even if it's just read and write a footnote. And so I want to have my time. So I also come on the days that I teach, I come really early, and also I designate email time. And I tell my students at the beginning of the semester, look, after this time, I do not answer email until the next day, because like we have a life. They get it. I mean, unless they have a test the next day, you know, that kind of thing. But after my personal rule is, after 5, I don't work. I spend time with my child, I cook, and after that, I have time for myself to enjoy my life. And over the weekends, the same. I like to read and do some stuff over the weekend also if I can, but that's it. And in the summer, it's a little bit harder because I don't have classes. So, but I still have a schedule, like Bill said, it's like a 9 to 3 or something like that. I also think it's also for me very important to exercise, and all these things are like medication to me. Like this schedule is what keeps me staying healthy and enjoying what I am doing. So I think that. Yeah.
Thank you. Second question is also about the academic growth. So during your professorship, how do you grow more in terms of research and also for teaching? Do you have certain study time? And this is from my personal experience as well. I still feel really stuck from my PhD studies. And I don't feel like I academically grew throughout this last 3 years. So any advice or tips for us would be great.
I feel interested that.
Good.
So I feel that I felt kind of like you were feeling at the beginning. I don't know this way you're looking, maybe we can go back and forth. I feel that what I needed, well, I have one particular colleague in my department, Emily, you know, she helped me a lot. We work on similar things, different periods of similar things. I learned a lot from her. Like I follow a lot of her examples, and also like having more than one project. That's one of the things. Like, how do you do it? How do you like, you know, but also having people from your background outside of the university and the feedback, you know, like the peer review, for me it was the fear of the rejection, which man, you're gonna get rejected so many times, and embrace that, right? Because you grow from that. And what helped me the most, and I don't think that this is probably applicable for everybody, was when I prepared my first edited volume, when I was the editor, it helped me. Well, it helped me grow definitely, because I am like looking at everybody's. You see that good, that's good, but also from other people's mistakes, and you're like, because it's so much easier to identify, right? Everybody else's mistakes than your own. So I grew from that. That creates community, a lot of more community. It gets so that I recommend this for people who are like, at least for the LLA people, period. I totally you and that it helps a lot. It's study time, like just read a lot. Keep reading for your papers. Read. It takes. I think that we're never gonna learn it. It is what it is.
And I think it's important to have collaborations. You know, if you have a colleague or a bunch of colleagues from your field, it's very helpful to sort of build a relationship outside of your department, outside of the university, because you know you can feed off the different sort of projects that you're working on together. It's, you know, for me personally, coming out of COVID when nobody got to be able to get together and exchange ideas, it's kind of hard to get to ramp up to the same level that we were at before, just because if I haven't been to a conference since 2019, right? So that's something that we have to all actively work on, is getting back out there, finding some place to get out and, you know, meet up with people and exchange ideas. And then once you do that, the more people that you involve yourself with, the easier it is. Then it kind of goes back to the last question: how do you find the time to do all those things that you really want to do? But making that sort of, and it could be somebody from your community, it could be somebody that you saw at a conference, it could be, you know, somebody that you published with previously. Just maybe an email, check in with them on LinkedIn or something, and be like, you know, I have this idea, have you done any work in that area? For us in the sciences, it's easy because we have labs and we do experiments, and you know, it's kind of the nature of science is very collaborative. But if you can have projects that can involve other individuals in your network, I highly recommend looking toward it.
My first year here, there was a different chair for my department, and the way the scheduling worked was different, but I was here 5 days a week. Too much. Paula took over. The answer is to have Paula as your department chair, because she has made sure that all of us junior faculty have had at least one day where we are not supposed to be on campus, which has given me permission to not think about teaching for a day and to focus on research and she knows we probably won't answer emails on that day.
Yeah, for me, one of the challenges I had when I got here was keeping up to date in my fields compared to like when I was in graduate school or even when I was an adjunct. And so for me, like the book review sections of the major journals in my discipline, like that's a way for me relatively quickly to see, okay, what are the big names up to? What are the books being published? Things along those lines, which is something that's really also helpful to my teaching because working with students that are doing a senior thesis, it enables me to say, hey, you need to take a look at this book, or you need to see what this author is doing, or something along those lines. And kind of similar to that, particularly the Journal of American History, which is our top professional journal for American historians. They're very good at doing these kind of state of the field articles, which are these syntheses of what's being published in a particular area. So like what's going on in the American Revolution right now, what's going on in presidential history right now. And it's usually by a very prominent historian, and you can kind of get a really good idea of what's going on in like a 25-page journal article. So those I find really helpful because that's something I struggled with. Like I remember like when I was at my peak coming right out of grad school, I was like, I knew what everybody was working on. I knew what all the big books being published were. And then I got here and just got buried with the grading and lesson prep and the service requirements and everything else. And my scholarship suffered, but also feeling like I was connected to my discipline also suffered. So for me, that's something that's been pretty helpful. Also, even like writing book reviews. So that's something that's been helpful to me for a couple reasons. One, it keeps me reading and reading books that are related to what I teach about. But it also is a good way, particularly during the academic year, of keeping up my writing skills. Like if I don't have time to write a 45-page book chapter or something like that, I do have time to write a 2 to 3 page book review. And so for me, that's also been helpful. In terms of like study time necessarily, I mean, like I said, I do try to have like one day at least that I can just focus on scholarship. And I will say that while I was really good at it until 3 years ago, since being college honors director, I've not been disciplined enough to do it. And it is something that I do want to try to get back to because it was really helpful. But over the last 3 years, I've had a really hard time not letting mostly administrative stuff creep into that one day. So that is something I've been struggling with and need to try to get back on track with. But I know it's possible because before becoming Pell director, I was doing it. So I just need to get back to it.
Can I follow up on what Bill had to say there? I found that as I've gone on, I read less and less science when I was a postdoc. I had time for just sitting there perusing the journals. We don't have that kind of time, right? When you put your course schedule, your teaching, your grading and all that stuff. And so lately what I've found is that I find what's otherwise garbage time, where, you know, for example, there's the American Chemical Society produces Chemical and Engineering News, which is a weekly, and there's usually some pretty good articles in there. And I can go through it in 30 minutes. My daughter's violin class is 30 minutes long, so I have to be there. So like, it's just a kind of a nice time to sort of, if I can handle the speaking and the reading at the same time, it's a great time to sort of do that, and it makes the time fly a little bit. So like, I find getting those magazines and going through them during time that you'd otherwise not be productive is a really good way of getting a little bit of new information in. I used to do it when I was a grad student on the train in Boston, right? Also a great way to avoid the madness of what was on the tea. But so find times that you otherwise not be productive but could read.
And I, not necessarily related, but I would say I would strategize. Learn how to say no without feeling guilty. Like, and you are my modeling, but because I remember about the service, it's like how it's not just research and teaching, it's also the service that we get here, which is a lot. So what I do inspire in one sentence you once in one of our faculty assemblies that we had in person, is I pick service very strategically. I do the service that I think I'm good at, and that I enjoy. Why? Because I think I'm gonna do it better. I don't just pick things to pick. So I pick them. I am very strategic, think of how much time I'm gonna be able to give to this. Then for the teaching, my teaching, where I teach languages, mostly that doesn't necessarily relate to the research that I do. I mean, if I have an advanced class one semester, I can insert something of my research, but I cannot do like professors in other universities where they have their syllabus ready with all their next book. I have to do this, so I have to strategize, and I do it by again protecting my time and dividing it in a smart way. Because for instance, I think that this is very interesting. When my son is in swimming, which is almost 30 minutes, I don't want to read anything. I want to look at him. But this is just me, you see, because I still enjoy it. He's younger. So maybe it's the years.
Swim class is a completely different story.
That could be. So we have different perspectives. I think that we need to pick and choose what works for us, and a lot of trial and error is happening here.
For example, being invited to give a panel discussion on service. Something you enjoy, right?
Love it.
Talking about scholarship and being productive.
Well, it helps you. It's like a metacognitive paper. Yes, it helps me think.
Thank you.
Written by your AI.
My next question is, when do you know when to give up on the current research and focus on new studies? This is also from my personal experience. There are some manuscripts that it just keeps getting rejected, and I don't want to focus on that. But when there are like collaborators, and if I'm the first author, then I cannot easily give up on those. So if you have similar experiences on that, I would love to know.
I once had a review of one of my papers come back, and I'll quote it. This paper should not be published in this or any journal. I know who wrote it. So it was a big name from the West Coast. Yeah, that's pretty demoralizing to pick up pieces, and yeah, it's pretty bad, yeah. But you kind of have to brush those things off and be an adult about it and just move on. Glass of wine helps. But as far as giving up on a project, if you've gone as far as writing a publication, I would say you pursue it, continue to pursue it. If you believe the data and you believe in it, there's no reason to give up on that. But as far as finding a new project or moving on to a new area of study, I would say when you feel like you don't have anything else to contribute in a particular field, or if you're bored with it, might be time to find something else that you are curious about, and let your curiosity run wild.
The competitor in me is not gonna let me give up on a project, so sometimes there have been instances in the past where I had to pivot to take a journal that I submitted it to, so I had a paper a couple of years ago. It was on the 2016 presidential election, and it took until 2021 to get a journal to finally commit to it. And we had originally submitted it to family journals. Insight kept coming back, and it ended up in a counseling journal, which is a language I'm kind of familiar with, but not super familiar with. If you got to the point where there's a manuscript, I agree. I don't think I can let it go. It just needs to find the right home. Having outside eyes on it, people who are not involved with the project at all, can sometimes help. Sometimes the editors are willing to provide a little bit of extra feedback about what's wrong with the manuscript. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel the same way Tom and Katie do. I've never like actually given up on something that I actually had a full manuscript on. I had one situation where the first journal I sent it to, they were like, well, we're mildly interested. That was what they said. We're mildly interested. But to publish it, you'll have to do this, this, and this. And if I did this, and this, it wasn't really the article that I set out to write. And I also thought they were kind of snippy and didn't really want to work with them. But I really liked the article and it was important to me to do it. And so I kind of reached out to, like Katie just suggested, I reached out to people at other institutions, friends I have at other institutions that do that kind of history. And I'm like, okay, I've got this manuscript. I sent it to them. Like, do you have any ideas for a journal that might be interested in this the way it is? Like, I was fine with like making some revisions to it, but like I still wanted it to be the article I set out to write. And right away, one of the people I taught with at West Point was like, yeah, you need to send it to this place. They'll love this. And I did, and they did love it. And it was a great experience. Like working with them was a great experience. Their editor was like a great person to work with. And so it ended up being actually in a lot of ways a better journal to publish with than the first one that I sent it to. So that's one experience. The other one I've had is for a book manuscript that is what I'm hoping to get into again this summer in a larger, to a larger degree. It was something I tried to start doing when I first got to Salve, and we'll just say that didn't work. When I got here, I just did not have the time to devote to it when I was teaching my 4-3 load. And so I just kind of put it aside and I think I did like a small book chapter on something related to it for a book edited by a friend of mine. But other than that, I just kept the research and put it off to the side where it's been for about like 6 years at this point. And I have started kind of getting back into it at this point. Like I said, this is what I'm going to start doing. This is the next book project this summer. So I didn't abandon it, but I put it aside for a while because I just was not making progress on it. And now I kind of have the attitude, well, I'm a full professor, there's nothing else to go for, so I can just take however long I want now to get it done and can do what I want to do with it. So so I have never actually given up on something that was in manuscript form, or even in this case, it's not in manuscript. Part of it is written, but yeah, I kind of with Katie, I'm like, if I went this far, I am not giving up on it. I'm just because I don't have a lot of time to work on scholarship, so I'm not going to blow hours on a project. And then just if you keep looking and you branch out and you talk to people, you will always, in my experience, you'll always find something.
And so, I have things that are there still. Like I don't know if I would say that I gave up on them. They're there. So when I was in grad school, I remember my advisor said, you know, this paper, like you write your papers for your classes, and in my case, at least they were pretty crappy. I mean, I don't want to look at them now, but I remember the topics that were very interesting in some of them. And he said, leave these for when you don't have anything. So in that sense, no, you don't give up, right? And I would have given, I don't have the document, but I have the actual paper graded by my professor. I'm like, that's there in a folder. I'll get to it sometime because I think about it. I have been rejected, and I love that in the journals where I have sent it, they have given me really good feedback as to how to improve it. So one of the things that I do is the first step for me is going to a conference, and that's where you do your trial. You go out, let's see somebody, you have people there first, somebody who can ask you a question, or you test out your ideas. Talk to, again, when I write, I ask my colleagues, some people who are very connected to what I do, and others who are marginally connected to what I do. I want to see their point of view, with regard to the topic, with regard to the like my bibliography, with regard to the writing. I have asked people here for bibliography because I do a lot of interdisciplinary work. So sometimes I do cinema and now I'm working on a TV show. So I need that, like I need to study now. But if it doesn't get picked up, I don't have the responsibility that you have of having other authors, it's just mine. So if I want to park it, I can. I'll park it. This is what happened. One of these articles, I just got sick of it. So I got the rejection and I'm like, no, go there. I know I'm gonna do something, but you're gonna go there. I want to do something else. And I did another article. I'm like, now I'm ready for this. Now I'll get this back. But I am not afraid of saying, I don't want to see you now. It's like with boyfriends, like you work next.
This is for like self-care, health related question. What do you do when you have a mental breakdown during the semester? How do you quickly get back to your reality and stay stable and reliable for your classes and for your research? Does that help?
Great.
It's released. I do it in class too. Sometimes. Talk. Did you talk to your people?
I mean, this is gonna be different for everybody. You know, I find that this is my 10th year here, and it took me about 7 or 8 years to realize that the walk is right behind us, right? And so every single day I'm on campus, I make it a point to take 20 minutes and go down there and just walk around. You'll find some of your colleagues down there. Seen the room down there. I've seen people meditating down there, and it's a really good resource to just get out in nature and just forget about the emails and all the other things. Make use of it. It's like it's a benefit that the university pays us, and they don't even have to pay us for, right? So like we can go there. For me, it works really well. Just every time I'm on campus to go down there and do that. Not necessarily to cure a mental breakdown, to avoid it, yeah, it's helpful.
Running for me has been super helpful. Signing up for a race and having this other commitment outside of the university, where I have to be outside for a half hour every day, running, without headphones, without interacting with anybody, arguing with myself in my head the whole time, just gonna help me work stuff out. But the points where I start to lose my grip on the semester is also when I realize that that's when I've let exercise start to slip, and if I can get that back in there, the semester kind of turns around a little bit.
And it's hard to not lose a little bit, but it's good. This is why I think we have to treat it like medicine. The running. I need the headphones and I need hardcore music, like really, like really, yes. But also, I'm so happy about the department we have now. Emphasis, and it's just like amazing. So if I have an issue, I have all the people on my hallway that I can talk to, and it's just nice. I am very lucky.
Don't forget to make time for yourself to do the things that you like to do. I should probably do more of that myself, but take some time to do what you like, especially if you have like your kid is in school, what a wonderful 6.5 hours that turns out to be, right? You don't have 6.5 hours to use for yourself, but don't just work. Don't just focus on work. Make sure to make time for yourself, because if you don't, who is going to do it for you? So that's why I go running at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my God.
There's nothing going on. It's beautiful.
I got Robert foot. It was too dark.
I see. I don't know.
Yeah, stop seeing her because she twisted her.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of the same for me, like, and this is something I really picked up during COVID. It's like the only positive thing that came out of COVID really, but going certain places on the island for like long walks, so like Brenton Point, over by Castle Hill, Satchel West, places like that. I've done Cliff Walk, but I've kind of been avoiding it since, you know, part of it collapsed. So I do that, and I can't believe I'm admitting this publicly, but mindless television has also become a way to decompress. So my students convinced me I need to watch more reality dating TV. And this is actually become, like, very embarrassed to admit this publicly, a source of conversation for us before class. Like, Dr. Leeman, did you see what happened on the Bachelorette last night? Kind of a thing. So yeah, I'm terribly embarrassed about it. It's definitely up to my cool professor factor among the students quite a bit, so that's the benefit. And like, I just watch it and I just tend to focus on, God, these people are really screwed up. And it just makes me forget about a lot of that stuff that went on. So yes, as shocking as that may be to some of you, I have made my foray into reality dating television on occasion.
I recommend watching Love is Blind on Netflix.
I've not actually seen that one.
There you go, watch it.
So I'm not entirely sure if Cliff Walk is safe enough.
That's my view on it. Why risk it? That's just gonna cause more problems. I mean.
Okay, this is my last question. Was it hard for you to adjust yourself from a PhD student to a tenure-track professor? How can I set healthy boundaries with my students, and how can I professionally handle ageism in the academy? So both from my personal experiences, like a lot of students really liked my class during this semester, but then I realized they like start taking picture or video of me and post on their social media like randomly, like me walking on campus.
What?
Yeah. So I think that's like nice, but I also want to learn from all of you like how to set the boundaries and handle ageism. The ageism experience is from like students or colleagues who are not working with me directly, thinking that I'm a student. Or like some colleagues ask me like, do I have master's degree? Or like, yeah, so I don't know how to handle these questions and doubts for my professionalism nicely. I don't know.
I give looks.
Side eyes.
I mean, I think I've only had one example of ageism. It was before I got here. I was in, I mean, I'll just say where it was. I was in a like on-campus finalist interview at the Naval War College. And at the age I was at, most of my students would have been older than me. And during my interview, I had a retired Navy captain tell me, well, you're really kind of young. Like, I'm not sure like why you were interested in this job, which my immediate response was, you couldn't do the math on my CV and discover like how old I am based on when I got my degrees. I'm also like, you guys invited me to an interview, but that's the only time I ever really encountered it. And to me, it kind of was one of those things that convinced, even though like I work with some people there, like I would not really be interested in working there because there are certain things about that environment, and that kind of gave me the indication of like, yeah, this probably isn't a good fit for me. But I would say that's the only time I encountered the ageism part of it. In terms of boundaries, I mean, I will admit that Salve is very different than other institutions I've met at. Like the boundaries get pushed a lot more here in my experience than they did at my previous institutions. Now, in fairness, my real previous institution was West Point. The cadets do not push boundaries. Like, so that really wasn't an issue. But even as an adjunct at like Providence College, University of Rhode Island, I never experienced what I experienced here when I got here. So I think it's just a matter of you set the boundaries where, yeah, you can be friendly and take an interest in their lives and things like that. But if it ever gets to the point where somebody's pushing it and it becomes too much or you become uncomfortable, then you have to have that conversation. And I have had that conversation. I mean, fortunately, as I've gotten older, it becomes much less of an issue. But yeah, I do think there is something a little strange about South Bay when it comes to that. That when I got here, I was like, whoa, like, this place is crazy. A little bit, based on what my previous experiences were.
One issue I've had is being in psychology, but not a clinical psychologist, is that students and most people don't understand the differences between the different types of psychologists. And as a younger woman in psychology, I think students will sometimes treat, now I can probably speak for most of my department, treat us like therapists, like they can come to us and tell us anything. And so when that starts to happen in my office, like, like, here are the resources available on campus, and just knowing when to draw the line there, but the ageism piece is taking care of itself, I think, as I fly into middle age here. But the professional boundary stuff has largely been around psych-related things because of my degree. I'm not a clinical psychologist, don't want to be. I don't want to hear about people's problems.
I have the benefit that I teach classes like physical chemistry, quantum mechanics, so that naturally makes students pretty amazing. I like to think that once they get to know me a little bit better, it eases things, but you know, they hear about PCAM and they're like, oh my God, I don't even want to be in the same room as that guy. So you know, it all works out in the end. I've not really had the same issues. I mean, every once in a while you have a student who just feels like they can push the boundaries really, really far, and you know, the response is kind of like just, you know, hey, this is class. Like, you know, we're in class here, people. Next wave function to solve.
My case, well, I don't know, I joke a lot and I'm very personable, these are verbs that I learned as I did them, the actions, I didn't know them. So I don't have an issue with that. I don't think, because also because I know there are cultural differences between my students and myself. I talked at the beginning, as I've been having issues or knowledge, just because I negotiated the different situation. I think it's also like I have to put the boundary on myself, like my head closer to my body, you know, that kind of thing. But I talk to my students at the beginning, and because I have a loud voice, I enunciate a lot, like I make a lot of emphasis. So they don't, like, I can go from like ha 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 to like being very serious. So at the end, I don't think they are confused because I tell them, I'm like, you know, I'm this kind of person. I like making jokes. I like I tell stories. I like sharing. I like that we all share. But when we're working. And in order to have fun, I need X, Y, and Z done. And I'm very serious. So I don't think I've had issues with the boundary thing, or nothing that made me uncomfortable. And I have to make sure that I make them uncomfortable too. Again, a cultural thing. In terms of ages, it doesn't happen anymore. I mean, when it used to happen back when I was like 20 years younger, students commented on my clothes. It happens a lot to women, or also guys, I don't know. It's just like that I didn't care. It depends on what do you care, and if you care about something, just tell them in a way that it's respectful but direct. That's how I mean, I'm very direct, but I like to say also in, like, you know, in a relaxed way.
I find it's easy for to avoid the ageism thing once my students realize I'm not on Instagram or Twitter. Like they just assume I'm a dinosaur, and you know, it's all over.
If you have Facebook, that's already bad. You're all.
If you have Facebook, but it's been like dust.
No, Facebook makes you old.
There you go.
So, yep.
And should I handle the same way when I get ageism from colleagues?
You know, I don't know what to me it was not ageism. It was my accent. I mean, when I was this happened at school, and this is by people that I like. So just I took a little person feeling, but now I'm like, these are nice people. You just have to like talk, just tell them. Like I remember when I first came, we were having lunch, a few of us, and we were talking, and I said, you know, when you have a conversation, if you don't hear something, you say, sorry, right? And then they started talking to me, explain, very slowly. And I'm as smart as, and I'm like, I've been here for 15 years. I understand you. I just didn't hear you. Like, I'm like, no problem, but I'm gonna be very clear with this. So, but you have a different personality. Just say or ask somebody how I approach is, you can say it in a joking way, in a serious way. It depends on what you want to do. It's but that happens a lot. It still happens, 23 years here.
Okay, so any questions for our panelists? No?
You asked such great ones, I don't have it.
Victoria?
So I with a couple of different research collaboratives, and there's the University Gender Research Collaborative, for critical concerns. Are there other research collaboratives or writing groups or anything that's faculty organized or that people have started? There was one. There was one. I remember going. Did you ever see the summer? Like
It's in the summer in the library.
yeah, right.
2 weeks. But really, we don't have a library.
No, we don't have a library now. I mean, so it could. Yeah, I remember it did happen, but I don't think it's still going on.
Well, it's Michelle Riviere that started it.
Yeah, it was with Michelle. Yeah. No, it doesn't mean that it cannot happen again. Yeah, that would be cool. Well, then now you know what to do. Start one.
I think it's doable even on Zoom, like study means
Accountability group.
yeah. And then we can like report each other what we have been working on every 2 weeks. Any other questions?
I'll just make a comment. I've had also issues with being mistaken for a student here.
Every day.
We just happened at graduation and I had full regalia on and so long.
And even Georgia.
Yeah, those comments are, you feel a lot better about those as you do.
And I think, I don't know if you've seen comments, but I think because we're like smaller stature, that gets confused a lot. So I think this role that it's just, it happens and you just kind of have to.
But Virginia should have kind of been a clear indication.
Yeah.
We don't have a lot of doctoral.
That's a long time.
I mean, unless it becomes an issue with respect in the classroom. If there is an issue like that, then I would talk to a colleague or more than one colleague and get different perspectives, and like how to handle things.
Well, cycling back to the last question, and when you asked about what happens when it's with a colleague, and I mean, I'll let everyone in this room know that I'm a big proponent of moving faculty assembly back to in person, possibly at a time that's not like right on the start of the weekend. But we don't know any of the newer faculty since COVID because we don't do this stuff in person and there's no replacement for this kind of a gathering. So I hereby, my question is, if you can lobby your friends to suggest that we move these meetings back to in person, where we can get to know each other as opposed to what might be a blacked out rectangle on a computer screen.
And even though I introduced myself as an assistant professor, some asked me if I had like graduate degrees because I look younger. So that was a little.
It is not okay there. Yeah, that's what I, that's what,
That's
Like,
pretty
I experience that as harassment, and I don't know the answer, you're supposed to like report that to the Title IX.
I told students in my class thing happened because sometimes I take pictures of the things that I do. I'm like, okay, not me. You don't have permission. Officially, you have no permission to just like on the sidewalk, but that is weird.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Is your, but my son is like, it's not okay, and it is a Title IX issue. They are harassment issue, and teams or.
Maybe you should write a decision.
Okay, so if you don't have any more questions, thank you so much for being here. Have a great